What is up, guys? Matthew here, and welcome back to the Who Addicts. And wow, Power of the Doctor dropped last night, and we are officially in the era of Russell T Davies and David Tennant as the 14th Doctor. There's so much to consume, so much to take in with what happened last night. And do not worry, myself and James, I've rescheduled our podcasts and we are going to record a Power of the Doctor review on Wednesday, so that's going to be the next podcast out later this week. But still trying to consume and take in everything that happened in last night's episode, I thought I wanted to answer a question that it's been like an itch since RTD was announced, and has been even now made more of an itch with obviously David Tennant being officially made the 14th Doctor. And that is, why? Why is RTD back? Why is a man who has dismissed returning for a decade now suddenly back to head write the show? And why have they brought back David Tennant in between Jodie Whittaker and Ncuti Gatwa when they could have just went straight from Jodie to Ncuti Gatwa? I think there's a reason for this, and I think it's because they've been brought back in as a stopgap to stabilise or maybe even save Doctor Who. And here is why.
And in years to come, you might find yourself revisiting a few, but just the old favourites,
I am so excited, I think I'm gonna explode!
So, it's been 12 years since Russell T Davies and David Tennant left Doctor Who. It was New Year's Day 2010, and we never thought we would see them ever again. Maybe David Tennant in a special, but never as the full-time incumbent Doctor. And we're here in a world which, let's be fair, is unprecedented. Now, Doctor Who is a show that will always continue to surprise us with the directions it goes in and what it tries to do. But for a head writer to return and take the helm once again, that already felt unbelievably unlikely and crazy. But for a Doctor, an actor, to return as the Doctor full-time, but not as the Doctor they used to be, as a brand new Doctor, is unprecedented. Even in the world of Doctor Who madness, where we've got Doctors flying in from all directions, we've had, you know, Tom Baker's Doctor returning the 50th, we've had all sorts of crazy stuff. This has to be the craziest yet. It's absolutely mental, and the fact that he's coming in for 3 specials next year, he's officially the 14th Doctor, and Ncuti Gatwa is now officially the 15th Doctor. So, the question is, why is this happening? Because don't get me wrong, I am absolutely beyond delighted that this is happening. Do not get me wrong. I'm not questioning this because I think it's a bad idea. In fact, I think it's the perfect idea. I think it's the only idea, because I was in a position last year where I was ready for the show to go on hiatus, or even maybe not be axed, but go away for a while after the Chris Chibnall era, because my love for the show was absolutely on the floor, and I feel like the show was heading on a steady slope to complete apathy across the board. And, you know, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the details in a minute, but I felt like the show was in a position where it needed a break, and I was happy for it to have a break. And I don't think any new head writer who we'd not had before, a new Doctor, would have really reignited my love for Doctor Who, and I think that's probably the same for the majority of the fan base. So bringing back a Doctor like David Tennant, my Doctor, the most popular of the modern era, maybe ever, that's arguable, and Russell T Davies, the man who is the godfather of modern Doctor Who and is responsible for bringing it back to a whole new audience, and is responsible, let's be honest, for us all being here today. It's incredible, it's amazing, and it's probably the only thing that would have got me back on board. It's incredible. And already online you can see the reaction of people saying, I've not watched it in years. I left even as far as Matt Smith, and I'm going to come back for Tennant. You know, I've not watched this last era, but I now cannot wait for new Doctor Who. That's exactly why they've done this. They have brought these two back, not for the sake of it. They've not brought them back for shits and giggles. They're back to save the show. Because I believe, and I think this has been even more solidified by how the regeneration was filmed and edited at the end of the episode last night, I am 100% certain that after that regeneration, the initial plan was that Jodie Whittaker regenerates. We see her on that beautiful cliff top, by the way, great regeneration, and it pans out and pause. It fades to black, to be continued, ... and it's done. And that would have been it. I believe, honestly, the initial plan was that it was going to end there. Whether it was going to end for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, who knows? That, for me, was the plan. This can be backed up by a number of things. There was the rumour during Flux that because of the pandemic, Chris Chibnall was going to walk. A head writer doesn't just walk unless there's someone lined up to take over, and that for me indicates, if true, there was no long-term prospects for Doctor Who. The short term was Flux, the specials, the regen, and that was it. And if Chibnall was going to walk, they were going to just either bring someone else who was already a part of that team to get it to the end, or they were going to finish it there and then. Another point is Matt Strevens. Now, he said in an interview, I think at a convention, that that team did not even know that Doctor Who was going to continue on until the announcement was made. And the announcement was made very close to the announcement that Jodie and Chibnall were leaving. It's like they made the announcements in a weird sort of arrangement. So if the current team didn't know that the show was going to continue, then there must have been no plans whatsoever, because there's always a transition between one Doctor and another. You know, in The End of Time, Stephen Moffat wrote Matt Smith's first lines at the end of that episode in the TARDIS. Likewise, Chris Chibnall wrote Jodie's first lines at the end of Twice Upon a Time.
Oh, brilliant.
There's always that seamless transition, and for me, because it wasn't in the TARDIS, because it was on a sunrise and on a cliff top and it panned out, for me, that was it. And they were planning on ending the show there and then for however long, and I honestly believe they've brought Russell and David in to save the show, because, let's be honest, the show wasn't in a great place. Now, I know there's a lot of fans of this era, they'll defend it to the hilt, and that's your own opinion, but you cannot tell me that the show was in its best position, viewership, merchandise, just publicly, perception. It wasn't the centrepiece of the BBC anymore, it wasn't a flagship show, it wasn't the centrepiece of British, it just didn't have that aura, that presence of what it used to, Doctor Who. It just isn't. It's nowhere near where it was before. And I think I'm not a viewing figures guy. I don't live and die by the viewing figures. Some people, you know, take them as absolute gospel, but I'm not also some of the people who just dismiss them as completely irrelevant. Viewing figures are relevant, and viewing habits have changed. I am not naive to think or believe that Doctor Who will ever return to having 8, 9, 10 million viewers a week. It's just not going to happen. The world has changed, the way people consume television has changed, viewing habits have changed. People who argue that are right, but they're only half right, because they do matter, and the current state of the viewing figures cannot just be blamed on viewing habits. We went from 10 million at the start of Series 11 down to 5 million, I think it was, around that for the for the Battle of Rice and Beans. Then it started off Series 12 on a similar footing with Spyfall, but dropped to 3.65 with The Time's Children. Again, Flux started in and around the area, but dropped all the way down as far as 2.2 overnight with Legend of the Sea Devils. You cannot tell me that Doctor Who should be getting 2.2 million overnight, and that is good. It is not. And although viewing habits have changed, no show is getting 10 million viewers overnight, apart from, well, maybe Line of Duty was the last TV show to do it. It was a steady decline, undoubtedly. And if they'd have continued on with Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker and that era for another year, full 10 episode series or whatever, and Series 14 was it with the same team in the same era, I could not see it turning around or going anywhere other than down. And I honestly think it would have maybe started at 3 million at a push and consistently been between 2 and 3 million. God forbid it might have dropped below 2 million, which for Doctor Who is unthinkable. For me, this show in this age, this day and age, should be getting 5-6 million. I think that's a good amount if it was to be one of the most popular shows on the BBC. The Regen, I think, has done around about 3.7. I think the 7 Days is going to be absolutely huge, by the way. Once people see that David Tennant's back, they'll jump back in and rewatch it. So I think the BBC were in a position where they thought, this can't go on. And whether Chibnall and Jodie's 5-year plan ended perfectly timed for that, or whether the BBC gave them a bit of a polite nudge, for me, it was going to end after that. And the BBC probably couldn't trust the show in the hands of anybody new. They probably looked at it and thought, we cannot risk giving this show to someone brand new and someone different in case the slope continues. The show either goes off air for a while, or if it continues, it needs to be in the safest pair of hands possible. And that is Russell T Davies. No safer pair of hands than a man who literally brought the show back to a brand new audience and made it an absolute phenomenon, especially towards the end of the noughties. And on top of that, the most popular Doctor probably ever. That doesn't just happen. You know, I don't believe in my heart of hearts that the BBC had Russell T Davies and David Tennant at the top of their list in an ideal world, because Doctor Who is a progressive show. It's always doing things differently. It's always going in a different direction. How else would a show that lasted almost 60 years, how would that continually, consistently renew itself and get better and continue to regenerate itself if it wasn't for people coming in, doing something different and doing something new? And I don't believe in the BBC's, honestly, in their heart of hearts, if all was well and the show was, doing decently well, solid viewing figures that were consistently staying at the same sort of range, and a show that was doing well merchandise-wise and just popularity-wise in general, if that was the case, David Tennant and Russell T Davies would not have been at the top of their list, and vice versa. I don't think RTD, I don't think Doctor Who and being the head writer was at the top of his list either. Going back to my earlier point, Russell has dismissed returning multiple times in the last decade. Even to just one single solitary episode, to an anniversary episode, he's flat out said no. He didn't want to come back, he'd done all he could, his legacy was cemented, and a very good legacy it is. He, I don't think, would have come back unless the BBC probably asked or even begged him to, and they've said, listen, the show either disappears for a few years, with no guarantee that it's going to come back, or Russell, you take it for us, because we need, if we're going to keep the show going, we're the BBC, we need to roll the dice, we need to hit a 6, we need to, assure stability, or even that the show turns around and U-turns and goes back up the viewing figures and starts to become a real success again. It was, I think, for me, a case of, bust or go with Russell. And Russell probably looked at it and thought, I worked hard to bring this show back, create this springboard, this platform for Moffat to do his stuff, Chibnall to do his stuff. I don't want this to just disappear. And he's thought, right, I didn't want to ever do this. I will take the reins for however long you want me to get people back on side. And even if people think that theory is a bit sceptical and maybe Russell did want to come back, why would he bring back David Tennant? Power of the Doctor, I thought maybe there's a reason as to why David Tennant's the Doctor. There still could be this big massive explanation as to why he is in between Geordie and Ncuti, but you know, if the whole theory around Russell coming back is actually nonsense and he is just the new guy he wanted to be and it was always part of the plan, why didn't Geordie regenerate into Ncuti Gatwa? Why is that transition not made like every other regeneration has naturally been made from one to the other? Why is Geordie not regenerated into Ncuti? Why is David Tennant sandwiched in between? Because viewing figures, because of popularity, because it's what the show needs. It's a stopgap to get people back on side, and it's already happening. You can already see it online. People are already stoked for what's coming next year, and I honestly believe there'll be a massive turnaround in viewing figures, and it's to stabilise the show, it's to stabilise the ship. Russell is bringing in David Tennant to get people back on board, and then when they're back on board, he will then hopefully use that as a springboard for Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor to come in and carry the show forward, still with Russell, a very safe pair of hands at the helm. I think it's as simple as that. David Tennant just doesn't come back for the sake of it. Russell doesn't just come back as head writer for the sake of it, when everything they've said completely says the opposite in terms of them never wanting to come back and their time being done. So that is what I think. I am 100% certain with what Matt Strevens has said, the rumours around Chibnall, the way the regen was edited, and the scenario we're going to be in with Russell and David. This was not part of the plan, and they have been brought in to pretty much save Doctor Who. I'm not talking like this is a bad thing. I think this is the right thing. I will say this, I feel a bit sorry for Ncuti Gatwa. If he is, sat there and maybe, unless there was some reason as to why he couldn't take the reins straight away because other commitments or whatever, even that doesn't wash, because if Ncuti's busy and, can't film 3 specials next year, then don't make 3 specials next year, do it in 2024. So I don't believe there's any reasoning for Ncuti not being the next Doctor because of him, but he must look at this and maybe think, you don't maybe trust me to take over straight away from Geordie? You feel the need to bring in David Tennant first because you want people to come back to the show again? I can see why Ncuti would look at that and say, well, why don't you have confidence that I could do that? My Doctor could do that. Why bring back David Tennant to get the viewers in for me to then take on board when I could have done that? So there's a part of me that maybe thinks, if true, that might be a little bit, not harsh on Ncuti, but not ideal. But yeah, for me, that is what I think the current situation is. I'm absolutely over the moon. I'm delighted. It sounds like it's already having a really positive impact on the fandom, and everybody seems excited that David Tennant is going to be the new Doctor for even 3 specials. I think it's going to be absolutely epic, and whether it's true or not, this could be me just chucking a complete conspiracy theory out there. Let me know what you guys think, if you think it's true or just one big coincidence. But RTD at the helm, David Tennant as the Doctor in 2023 are words I cannot believe I am saying, but that is where we're at, and I'm all for it, regardless of why. Let's just jump on the ride and look forward to what's going to happen in, 13, 14 months time? I cannot wait. So guys, let me know what you think about the return of David and Russell. Firstly, just what you think of it in general. Has it reignited your love for the show? Are you a fan who has not watched for years and is going to come back? Or are you a member of a big fan of the Chibnall era who's a bit like, I'm not sure about this? And as well as, if you're a fan of this, what do you think the reasonings are for this? Do you think there's nothing in it and it's a big coinky-dink that David and Russell happen to be back for a short period before Ncuti takes the reins? Or do you think they've been brought in to stabilise / save Doctor Who? Because I fully think it was all pointing to some kind of hiatus. I really do believe we were this close to maybe, if Russell didn't accept having maybe no more Doctor Who for the foreseeable. It could have been this close. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Like I say, hit that like button, smash it as hard as you possibly can. Subscribe to this channel for much more Doctor Who content. Hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Like I say, myself and James are going to be recording our review of Power of the Doctor on Wednesday to go out hopefully as soon as possible this week. So do look forward to that, as well as so much more content to come in the coming weeks. I am going to also do a slightly, I don't know if you want to say, crazy video on how many Doctors are there. I honestly want to tackle that question. I think I'm going to do that. So look forward to that, as well as loads of other fantastic video series we've got planned. James is going to bring back a couple of his old series. I think he's going to look to bring back his character reviews, his Defending series, and a brand new series on If He Was Head Writer. So that sounds incredibly exciting, so stick around for that. But yeah, my love for Doctor Who is back. The future is bright, and I hope you guys are going to be with us to enjoy the ride. So until then, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.
What?